So I have lived in West Michigan for 26 years. Moved up here in '94 um, to do an internship at Pine Rest. Had done my doctoral work down in Atlanta and came up here. And my wife and I, she's from Holland, Michigan, and her parents were missionaries to Bangladesh, and our dad was a physician in Holland, and they had to come back from the mission field, and so she grew up in Holland, and we raised our family here and love Michigan, but we recently just moved to a place called St. Mary's, Georgia. So I had my first winter not here in Michigan. It's sad, I know. It's very sad. This is the first bit of snow that I've seen on the ground in 26 years that I missed the snow. So you know what? You can, believe it or not, you can make it without the snow. So, but Georgia, yes, we get the hurricanes. You know, so I'll be back up here this summer. But we, our 4 kids are all grown now, and they're kind of spread around the globe. But we love Michigan, loved raising our family here, and my in-laws still live here, and so my wife comes up every other week to take care of them, and we stay in their basement there, and we'll stay there this summer to take care of my father-in-law who has Parkinson's. So, but we're up here a lot, love it. And I want to talk to you a little bit about our program, which is we call it Inner Armor. Inner Armor. Think of Under Armour, okay, but Inner Armor. And it has a lot to do with taking care of that inner part of yourself that is that thing that you're always having that dialogue with, you know, that part of yourself, that inner conversation that is fighting off maybe those anxieties, those stresses that protects you. We know a lot about taking care of our outer armor, you know, our physical, but the inner armor also works with our physical as well. And it's ultimately something that we want to take care of just as importantly. And it manages our brain and our body, and we're going to talk through, you know, how to manage that. And this program is how to do some of that in the workplace, and how to manage that to help you in the workplace, but also help you outside of the workplace, and not just today, but to invest into your future. You know, I've worked with a lot of different people, and many times we're working on our, you know, investing into maybe our retirement accounts or different things like that. And you know, I've had the opportunity to work with many people, and some wealthy people too, who actually, unfortunately, there's people who have invested their whole life and, you know, have a good source of income, but then their brain doesn't work, you know, and it's really kind of a sad thing, you know, to see somebody in their early 70s who have as much money as you can imagine, but, you know, they don't know if they can even have lunch that day because they're not too sure if they have $5 to their name when really they have millions of dollars, and their brain doesn't work to tell them that they actually, you know, can have whatever they want, right? Because they never took care of their brain. And so your brain is your greatest asset. You know, it's really the most amazing thing that exists, that we've been given in the universe, is our brain. You know, it's really amazing. It's the greatest thing that's ever, you know, really been created, is the human brain, and what the brain can actually create. You know, our Creator created this that allows us to create, and it's really amazing what it does and what it can make. You know, the things that we enjoy technology-wise, art-wise, it's just amazing what it can do. And so we really want to take care of it, you know, and we want to manage it. We get one brain, right? We can replace a lot of things. You know, I can give you a new heart, you know. If you need new blood, we can give you blood. You know, we can, you know, replace things, but you can't replace this guy. You get one. And so we want to take care of it. You know, we want to take care of it very well. To give you a little bit of background, My original first half of my career, I've been working in neuroscience for 30 years. The first half of my career, I was division chief of pediatric psychology and psychiatry at DeVos Children's Hospital, which you guys know of very well. You know, other places in the country, I say DeVos Children's Hospital, and they're like, you know, what's that? Where's that? Well, you guys know what that was, what that is. You know, back in the day in '95 when I started there, DeVos wasn't as big as it is now, and it didn't have a behavioral health component to it. And so I had the opportunity to kind of start that back then. And that was a great experience for me. I got to see a lot of different things, experience a lot of different disorders and diseases that kids experience that involve the brain. And in that, got to see, thousands of different things related to the brain. And it was great. I actually thought I was going to do that for my career, was going to stay at DeVos. But I really got kind of disappointed, in a sense, with the way medicine kind of treats the brain and behavioral problems. Two things. One is, I'm taught as a neuropsychologist to diagnose things. You listen to somebody's problems, you do testing, and you want to come up with a diagnosis rather quickly. And you have these like disorders that you diagnose, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder, PTSD, depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, psychosis, those different things. And so you diagnose this with testing and that kind of thing. And after a while, it just becomes these boxes that you're putting people in, And with kids, which I was working with a lot of kids, it really becomes just a series of maybe 8 or 10 boxes, and you're just dropping the kids in the boxes. And you may not have heard of this one box. There's this one called ADHD. I remember never heard of it. It's this rare disorder, okay? But there's something called ADHD, right? And it's a box that millions of kids get placed into that it's not that easy. It's not that millions of these kids have ADHD. If you stop and take a look at them and you look at their brains, you realize it's much more complex than that they're all different and that we're all unique. And the same with adults, right? Yes, people have different sleep problems, but it's not that one size fits all, right? Like some of you might have problems sleeping, right? But just because one of you walks into your doctor's office at 9:15 with a sleep problem, and the next person walks in at 9:30 with a sleep problem, that doesn't mean that the same treatment applies to one person as it applies to the other. Does that make sense to you? It's just like, it's not one size fits all, because each of you is very unique. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. Your brains are different. And what I learned after seeing about 60,000 brains, okay, I'm a little stubborn, it took me a while to figure this out, okay, is that every brain is different. It's unique. Okay, so what's your name?
Leah.
Leah, okay. So there's going to be probably, I don't know how many Leahs if we took from the beginning of time. Actually, Leah, if you go way back, Leah's been around. That name's been around for a long time, right? Like Leah's been around for a while. But from the beginning of time till the end of time, there's going to be a lot of people named Leah, right? But there will be only one brain that looks like her brain. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Yeah, and we're all like, thank you, right? There's only one, right? But, I mean, just really think about that. I mean, how amazing is that? I mean, we're all in our, we're moving along at this pace and all these different, but just stop and think about the wonder of Leah.
Yes, please.
No, isn't that cool? And stop and think about a second. And I know you have different things that are difficult and that are frustrating, and things about yourself that you'd like to be different and that there are struggles with. But stop for a second and just think about the wonder of you. It's amazing. There will never be, from the beginning of time until the end of time. That's a long time. There will never be you to walk this planet, right? And the idea that millions of people all fit into one box, that's a joke. That's just unacceptable. It doesn't work, right? And it's cheapening, in a sense, of humanity, right? And I started to realize this, that like, hey, I'm part of this system, and I got to do something different, because I don't believe that. I believe that there's one Leah, right? And I want to understand how she ticks before I start just like, here you go, next, give me another Leah, next, right? I want to know what's going to make Leah the best Leah she can be, right? Man, I'm like on my soapbox here. I got to like settle down. Come on, Doc, settle down. Okay, so that was one of the reasons that I needed to move on from the Children's Hospital. And the other thing was, we're really good in our culture, especially in the United States. We're really good at chemistry. Okay, we're very good at chemistry. We can chemically alter behaviors. We're very good at it. But with that comes a problem, is that we're really good at chemistry. Is that doesn't always fix things. Just because I can alter your sleep with chemistry doesn't mean I'm fixing your sleep. Okay? I need to get deeper and figure out why you're not sleeping and not just put a Band-Aid on something. So let's take this example. Let's say, and I'm going to get to the program here in a second, but I just want to give you a base of who I am so you understand why this program exists. Because this just isn't any program, okay? This program is rooted in some principles, okay? Let's say, what's your name?
I'm Bill.
Bill. Okay, Bill, what kind of car do you drive?
Today, a white GMC.
Okay, Bill's white GMC. Let's say Bill's white GMC, okay? All of a sudden he gets this check warning light, check engine light comes on. Well, I hope that doesn't happen, but he gets the check engine light, it comes on, okay? And so he decides, rather than take care of himself, he's going to take it to the dealer. So he takes it to the dealer, and he drops it off, does the whole rental car thing, right? And he comes back 3 days later, and they say, your car's ready. He pulls out a lot, and he looks down, and where the check engine light is, they've taken a piece of duct tape, right? And they've, over the check engine light, they've put a piece of duct tape, right? And Bill, he like kind of goes over the side of the road, kind of pulls over, and he kind of like leans over, and he realizes that behind the duct tape, he can still see that the light's on. And he's like, what? So he goes back to the dealer, and he's like, hey, I want to talk to the manager. And the manager comes out, and he's like, what's the problem, Bill? And Bill's like, I brought this thing in, and you put duct tape over the light. And the guy's like, well, can you see the light anymore? And Bill's like, no. And he goes, well, what's the problem, right? Problem with our medicine, our current medical community, many times, is we're settling for duct tape medicine, right? And we don't know well enough to ask questions many times to say, well, wait a minute, the light's still on, right? Yeah, my blood pressure's down, okay, or my cholesterol's a little bit better because I'm taking this or that, or I am sleeping, but have you really fixed why I wasn't sleeping, or why I was depressed, or why I was anxious, or why this thing was going on? Yes, the numbers look different, but what happens if I stop taking that? If I pull the duct tape off, is the light still on, right? And I'm not opposed to medicine because I've worked in this arena. Sometimes we need it, and it's like an ambulance that takes me from here to the hospital. I need the ambulance. But if I'm in the ambulance for 10 years, at some point I need to say, well, what else am I doing besides riding around the ambulance? And so we need to look at other mechanisms that help me maybe be on the least amount possible so that I'm also doing other things besides just duct taping everything. Make sense? And that's really what's kind of behind Inner Armor. It's not that we're getting rid of stuff. We're just saying there's more to it than just duct taping, right? That I'm trying to build internally other systems, because the greatest asset that you have is your brain. The brain's greatest ability is the ability to learn, okay? Think about what your brain does, what it has learned over a lifetime, all the things it can do, okay? Just think what you've learned in the last 10 minutes, okay? Think what your body's learning and doing every second. I give you this, take this number, 98.6. 98.6. What does that mean to you if I say 98.6? Temperature. A temperature. If somebody says a radio station, okay, I guess. But temperature, right? So when you think of temperature, you're not, what's your name?
Tim.
Tim, I like that name. Good, Tim. Very good, Tim. Okay. I got that. I like that, Tim. So Tim, you're not thinking about how do I maintain 98.6, are you?
No.
But your brain is doing some unbelievably complex things all the time to keep you at 98.6. It's learning and it's adapting to the environment every second to keep you at 98.6. And it's not saying, Tim, let's just stay in the 90s someplace. Like that'd be kind of cool. It's like 98.6, right? And if you go to Alaska or if you go down to the Caribbean, it's keeping you at 98.6. If you pick the wrong thing to wear today, like a short sleeve versus a parka or whatever, it's still going to keep you at 98.6. It's going to take the largest organ in your body, which is your skin, which is 28 square feet, that replenishes itself every 28 days. You get a new layer of skin. It's going to take that skin and the millions of pores on it, and it's going to open and close those pores without you thinking about it to regulate a thermostat of opening and closing those to keep you at exactly 98.6 without you even thinking about that. I mean, that's crazy stuff. Like who comes up with this stuff? This is like amazing. It's learning. It's constantly thinking. That's far more complex than sticking an amphetamine in you or a sedative into you. Okay, that's like this learning process. Can I work with these learning processes that my brain's doing all the time to learn things like how to focus, how to be calm, how to sleep better, how to control my heart rate, how to improve my blood pressure? Can I learn these things? Yes, I can learn those things with the right technologies, and that's what we want to teach you, how to do some of these things. So I mentioned to you a couple things about why I left the Children's Hospital, and I formed the company NeuroCore. We got to a point where we had 13 different clinics all over the Michigan and Florida, and then that kind of got to a point where just people coming to the clinics and that kind of stuff, that was a little bit more, I mean, it's like Amazon came, right? And retail kind of goes out and different things change, and getting more into people's homes or coming to people, working where we go into workplace, go into universities, go to sports teams. The climate change. So a lot of what I do is going more to people. So rather than people coming to us, who wants to drive to a place 3 times a week. And so we now do a lot of stuff. So Royer Neuroscience and Inner Armor go to places. So we are at different universities. We have a big program at Liberty University where we work with every one of their student athletes. So that's 600 student athletes do the exact same program that we're talking about doing with you. The program that we're introducing here with you is also the same program that we use with professional athletes. So you'll be doing almost the identical program that Kirk Cousins does. Do you guys know who Kirk Cousins is, right? So last Saturday, Ian and I were in Orlando interviewing Kirk with videotape, and the Vision program, which is step one of what you guys will be doing if you choose to be part of the program, is the exact same program that Kirk Cousins does. And the breathing program is the exact same one Kirk Cousins does, and the focus program. They're just a little shorter versions, so you can do them in the work setting. We'll talk through what those look like. The inner armor is made up of three things. Two things that inner armor is not, that I want to explain to you, okay, is inner armor is not a tracking program. So you guys have probably different tracking devices, you know, like Fitbits and Apple Watches and Oura Rings. You've heard of all these different things. Inner armor collects data about yourself so you can see data, but it doesn't just track data. It wants to train that information. We want to train you to be stronger in those things. So it is helpful to see what your heart rate is. It is helpful to see that kind of stuff. But if you don't really do something about it, you know, it's just data for data's sake. So we're not just about tracking data. We're about helping you get stronger in that data. So that's one thing that we're not. And then the other thing I kind of alluded to earlier, we're not just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. We want to kind of find out where you are, how unique you are, and find out where your strengths and weaknesses are, and meet you right there and try to make you stronger in where you are, okay? And there's three primary areas that we're going to work on, okay? One area we call precision, okay? And I'm going to get into these in a little bit more detail as we go. One is precision, two is power, and three is focus, okay? So we're trying to remember those. Those are going to be really important. Precision, power, and focus. Can you guys remember those? The first one is what? Precision. The second one? And focus. Okay. So precision has to do with your vision, okay? Your eyes, okay? Now, when we think of eyes, you're immediately thinking glasses, okay? Or how well I can see. And that is true. Vision has a lot to do with clarity, but we're not talking about an eye chart, okay? When you think of vision, I want you to divide it into two things. One is clarity. So if I was standing here and I was stationary and there was an eye chart there, that would be clarity, okay? I'm still, the eye chart is still, and I'm seeing different letters, okay? And I'm judging or measuring the shape of the eye and whether I need to alter that shape with a lens to get it clear, okay? So those of us, actually a lot of people in the room have glasses or maybe contacts. We're altering the shape of the lens so that we can see the image clear. Does that make sense? Okay, that's the shape. There's another aspect of vision, and this is what we're working on. This is very important. And that is the strength of the muscles in the eye. Okay, so you have two eyes that have muscles attached to them that allow them to rotate. Okay, like lenses on a camera that rotate. Does that make sense? Those are no different than the muscles in your legs or your arms, your shoulders. They're muscles. There's a lot of muscles in there that move the eyes in and out. They don't just stay stationary, okay? And that's very important to your visual skills, okay? How many of you would say that your eyes are important to your job? I think everybody, right? And you know, when you think of your senses, most people would say the sense that they would have the most difficulty living without is their vision. It's probably the most scary sense to think about not having is your vision, right? And you think about the workplace, it's probably one of the most important ones that you need for your job. I do a lot with athletes. I've worked with number 1 in the world in golf 5 times. That person was number 1 in the world in golf, number 1 in the world in tennis 9 times, MVP of the NBA. These athletes, they will tell you the most important thing is their vision. It's interesting when you work with coaches, a lot of times I'll ask them, how often are you focusing on your players' eye muscle strength? And they'll be like, never really thought of that. And you're like, that's probably kind of important. I was listening to a broadcaster the other day during an NFL game. He said, that receiver made an interesting comment. He said, I catch the ball with my eyes, not with my hands. And it's kind of true, isn't it? Is that the hands are just an extension of what the eyes are telling it to do, right? If my eyes aren't working, my hands can't be in the right place, right? And think about that with your job, whether it's on the computer, reading a phone, whatever you're doing, or with life in general, how important your eyes are. So in the eye muscle movement, these eyes are very crucial to your reading and how you're taking in information, okay? So there's a task, there's a movement of your eyes when you read that's called convergence. And that's when you bring your eyes in. They rotate in to read. So the natural position of your eyes is not the position they go to read, okay? This is not, when you read and you move your eyes inward, think about having something in front of you at about 16 inches. Your eyes have to turn in to do that. You realize that, okay? That is not what your eyes were meant to do. When you were born, that is not what they were meant to do. Somebody taught you that originally to do that when they taught you the alphabet. And that was a muscle strength activity that happened, okay? Is the eyes had to learn to turn inward to do that. And when you're doing that all day, that is no different than if you're making steps with your legs and using muscles. You're turning those eyes inward. And many times as you're feeling fatigued throughout the day or tired by 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the day, that mental fatigue, even physical fatigue, can be happening from those muscles in the eyes having to work so hard. And that's not a natural skill that your eyes were meant to do, but you have to do that in the workplace a lot, okay? And so we want to strengthen that, because what happens as you get weaker throughout the day, you don't realize that this is happening, but as you get weaker, first let me explain how this works. When you converge and both eyes come in, so imagine these are 2 camera lenses, they come in, okay, and they're looking at the text from 2 angles, that creates what's called a span of recognition that's very wide, because I'm seeing it you see these 2 lenses coming in. What would happen if I took a lens out? What would happen to my span of recognition? It would decrease. It actually decreased by about 1/3, because they tend to overlap a little bit in the middle. So if this was 12 letter, or let's say 10 letters, my span of recognition, and all of a sudden this one goes out, then I'm down to about 6, 7 letters. Does that make sense? Because this one gave way, okay? So what normally happens to a lot of workers by halfway through the day is because of muscle fatigue, you don't realize this, but this guy, your weakest eye, which we all have a weak eye, starts to give way a little bit, and that will create a tiny bit of double vision, okay? And you don't realize it's happening, but your brain despises to the nth degree double vision. It hates double vision. It will do anything it can to avoid double vision. So if it senses any form of double vision about ready to take place, do you know what it does? It just shuts it off. Exactly. That's really good. What's your name?
Karen, but my
Karen.
son has
Okay, so you knew ahead of time. So immediately what it does is if it senses it's about ready to give way, before you even realize it, it's so subtle, it just goes boom. And it just goes down to 6 letters. And you don't even know it's doing that. But about a half an hour later, you're like, wow, my head hurts a little bit, or I'm getting kind of tired, I need some coffee. Or you've now read through like a whole page and you got to the bottom and said, what did I just read? Right? Never happens, right? Because you use so much energy to read, to decode, that you now don't have energy to comprehend, right? You only have a finite amount of energy, but because you had to use almost double energy to decode, you now have minimal energy to comprehend, right? Because we only have a finite source of energy. Does that make sense? And so we want to capture as much energy that we can for decoding and get all 10 letters so that I have as much energy left for comprehension so I don't make mistakes. Tracking with me? Okay, tracking. That's funny. Eye tracking. Okay. So we want it to be strong, and that's all about muscle strength. That's no different than me working with a quarterback or a wide receiver or a pitcher. It's the same deal, okay? It's just you're in the workplace. Your decisions may even be more important because you're reviewing a document that could be, super important, or something else that's coming across your desk, an email, okay? And we can't miss that kind of stuff. When I do this in corporate settings, we'll see close to 20% improvement in processing speed or visual productivity in your work week. Imagine what that is. That's almost like a day extra in visual what you're processing.
So you're saying we can take Fridays off?
That's what I'm thinking. Huh? Leah, right there, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Boom, out of here. Right?
Great.
Out of here.
The meeting's over.
Okay. So.
He is only one Leo.
Yeah, exactly. So precision is all about trying to strengthen these muscles. So in the precision task, we have to, because the brain has a tendency to want to shut out that weak eye, we have to keep the brain from doing that during the exercises. So we use a set of glasses when you're doing the exercises on the computer that have a red and a blue lens, and you're looking at a 3D image that you basically use this controller, like a game controller, and you're shooting at this little image, and it's 3D. And because we're using the red and the blue lens, the only way you can see the 3D is to use both eyes. So it keeps the brain from able to shut the weak eye down. Yeah. So we kind of fake the brain out so it can't just let go of that eye. So we're able to take that weak eye and push it so that it'll start to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and you're able to kind of go through these gates, and you're going to watch that weak eye get stronger and stronger and stronger, and you'll watch your speed of processing start to improve over time. And these are 10-minute exercises, so it's not a huge, commitment. We ask you to try to do this at least 3 or 4 times a week for 10 minutes. We're going to set up a couple stations in the empty office down here, and you stop in there 10 minutes on the game. You have a sign-in that you do. You can see on your account how you're progressing, okay? And we're strengthening those eyes, not just for here at work, but for everything that you're doing. Think about what you use your eyes for, okay? Use them for everything, and not just for here, but for the rest of your life, trying to get those eyes stronger. So that's precision. Everybody tracking with me? Okay. So let's go to power. Okay. So that's phase 1. That takes usually about 8 to 10 weeks to kind of get through that. It's self-generated. It can be done on the account outside of here, but we like it to be done in the office on the computers for now. Okay. It does have a cloud-based system, but here you just stop by, do 10 minutes, and we'll kind of, if it's not busy, it's just come as you may. If it does get busy, we might have like a little sign up that, but it's probably, with this size group, it's pretty easy. If we have 2 stations in there, that you'll be able to just pop in 10 minutes, do the exercises, and go. And again, it's kind of fun because you're getting stars every time you get it. Got my star, yes. Okay, okay. And it's all private. Nobody else has your information. But you're going to watch these things get stronger. And if you have a particular issue where you're not getting through the gates correctly, we're able to kind of jump in and say, okay, let's try to tweak this or work on this. Or we do have an ocular motor specialist that's available actually down in Hudsonville, that if we do need to kind of check maybe your prescription on your glasses or something like that, we can check that if we feel like there's something that's not working correctly. But that's precision and super important. I'll finish with this statistic on vision. It's estimated that every second that our brain processes 11 million pieces of information, which is unbelievable. But 10 million of those pieces of information are visual. That's how important our eyes are. It's taking in so much information. And the stronger those eyes are, the more our brain is able to process. And also think about, if these eyes are off, how much stress could that be causing your brain if these things aren't synchronized correctly, right? You know, if you do experience stress, fatigue, anxiety, it's amazing, even though it's not emotionally based, but if those visual fields are off, how much extra layers of stress that can already add to your emotional stress when this stuff is not working well, okay? And if you've had a cognitive issue or something like that, this can also be something that adds more layers of stress. So working on that is important. So that's precision. Power, number 2, the second phase of the program is looking at the most important energy source that your body needs. So when you think of different things that supply our body with energy, or where we get energy from, what are some things that you think that we need to get energy? Where do we get our energy from?
Sunlight.
Okay, sunlight is very important. We get vitamin D.
Very important. Very important.
You've been in the sunlight.
I thought you said Subway.
That's what she thought.
Subway.
Yeah, we should have windows.
Food.
Food is super important. Like sleep.
Caffeine.
Okay, caffeine. A lot of caffeine. Okay. Okay, so so how long do you think you could go without food and still be alive?
3 weeks.
An hour.
You could go a few weeks. You could go a few weeks without food. Okay, you could go a few weeks without food and still be alive. How long could you go without water and still be alive? Couple days. Maybe 3.
Right.
Maybe 3 at most. What else do you need that you probably couldn't go very long for? And
Air.
sleep is actually very interesting. Sleep, you could, by day, if I deprived you of sleep, by day 7, you would be psychotic, and by day 13, you would be dead. And what was the last one I just heard? Air. So our number one source of energy, it's estimated that close to 90% of our energy comes from oxygen. And we do think about a lot of these other things, and they're all very, very important, you know. And probably what's thrown at us a lot is a lot of things related to nutrition, which is super important. I'm in a lot of these arenas where nutrition is big, you know, like these sports teams and stuff where there's all kinds of nutritionists and stuff, and they're good people and they're working on all that stuff. But the number one thing that we get our energy from is oxygen. And not very many people are thinking about how they're using oxygen. And oxygen, if you focus on how you're using oxygen, can be one of the biggest game changers in your life. And I've been doing this for a very long time, and I cannot tell you how often I've seen people that when we start them on a really good breathing program, how it's been better than blood pressure medicines, how it's been better than antidepressants, how it's been better than Xanax, how it's been better than sleep meds. When it's done correctly, breathing programs can be transformative. And that's not just yoga. We're talking about like really good diaphragmatic breathing done in a way that it changes your heart rate variability. It literally synchronizes with your heart to change what your heart's doing, okay? So we're going to have technology available to you that's going to show you in real time how your heart is responding to your breathing, okay? So that you're going to be able to control what your heart is doing in relation to how you're breathing. So you might not know this, but the heart and the lungs work hand in hand. If you've ever heard of somebody getting a heart transplant, a lot of times there's a heart and lung transplant that's done hand in hand because the two are like wed together. I mean, they work in synchronization. Okay, so what the lungs do, the heart works together with. Okay, and so it's how we breathe and work with oxygen that really determines what the heart does. Okay, and so I've worked with special forces people that are in unbelievable life and death situations that can control their breathing in such a way that you're looking at their heart and you would think that they are in the most calm, relaxing, soothing situation that you could imagine. If you were just looking at what their heart is doing, you'd say, where is this person? Are they in a hammock on a beach in Cancun? Where is this person? But because they're controlling the oxygen flow in a certain way, they're able to control internally everything that's going on with them. I've also seen people in extremely calm situations who are unable to control what they're doing with their oxygen, and they're breathing from their chest in a very rapid way, and their heart looks like they're being chased by a lion. Okay? And so what we're going to teach you is how to breathe like one of these special forces person, that no matter what's going on, no matter what kind of craziness is happening around you, whether it's here or it's home or someplace else, how to be able to instantaneously put yourself in this perfect rhythm, okay? How to be in this, how to have what we call dynamic resilience, okay? How to be resilient no matter what's happening around you. There's a phrase, it's an old phrase, goes back about 400 or 500 years, that says, time and tide wait for no man, okay? Have you ever heard that phrase? Anybody ever heard that phrase? So time, we get that, right? Time is nipping at our heels, right? And time waits for nobody. The tide, I've learned now that I live in southern Georgia on the intercoastal, my wife and I have got used to, we know how the lakes work up here in Michigan, right? I don't have to worry about tide, but first thing I did when I got down there is I got this little John boat with a 20 horsepower Yamaha on it, and kind of tooling around the intercoastal down there, and I thought, it's just like being in Michigan, right? Well, we went out to this little tiny island, and I beached it on this island, and my wife and I went for a walk with the dog, and I was like, we were out for like a couple hours, and I came back, and my boat is up on the beach, and the water's like 250 feet away. I'm like, what is this? Like, who moved my boat? Well, God moved my boat, I guess. I don't know, but I realized, oh, the tide went out, right? So we had to sit around, not a bad deal, right? I guess, but we had to wait for it because I couldn't move that thing. We had to wait for that tide to come back in, right? Because the tide changed, right? Well, tide, I guess the writer of that meant was that tide it's moving all the time, right? There's high tide and low tide, right? And in our lives, right, we have high tide and low tide. And I think that's kind of, symbolic of, we have our high moments and we have our low moments. Like in this room right now, some of you got your high moments, right? And some of you have your low moments, right? And Just wait long enough, right? And it's all gonna flip, right? You know, it's always moving, right? It's always moving. We're always changing. Change is inevitable. Even our bodies are changing. Every 3 days, we get a brand new stomach lining. Every 3 days. Can you believe that? Every 28 days, we get a brand new skin covering. Every 10 years, we get a brand new skeletal system. We're constantly changing. Everything's changing. And so we have to learn how to control with this ever-changing tide of life or work or whatever that is. How do we manage the ever-changing tide, and how do we become dynamically resilient, right? How do we become resilient? The changes in relationships, whatever that is, and power is going to teach you how to do that. Okay, we want you to be experts at that. Just like, Kirk Cousins, how do we train him when he gets 2 picks in a row? How do you get back behind center and you still got to throw the ball? You can't just say, well, I'm not going to throw the ball anymore. Now I'm down by 14 points. I got to throw the ball even more, right? So we got to be dynamically resilient. That's what power teaches us. The last thing is focus. Okay, focus. So important. Okay, and most of the time we're taught that focus, or we learn focus is something that's brought on by adrenaline or caffeine. Okay, that it's more of a stress-based kind of thing. I got to get myself amped up to focus, right? Anybody kind of see focus that way a lot of times, right? And focus can be that way, okay? If I'm driving my car and somebody darts out in front of me, like a little kid, a ball runs, goes in the street and a little kid darts out, I become very focused, right? Boom, white knuckle it, right? And if I was to look at what happens in my brain when that happens, okay, when somebody darts out in front of me, when I'm in the car, is a little thing at the base of my brain called the hypothalamus. It releases a lot of electrical current, and I go into a state called sympathetic state, where I go into fight, flight, and a little chemical comes out of my hypothalamus, and that goes to something called my pituitary gland, which releases another chemical that then goes down to my adrenal glands. So this little chemical reaction, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal gland, down to my adrenal glands, and then my adrenal glands pop out a bunch of adrenaline. This is all in like milliseconds, right? And then adrenaline goes to every cell in my body, and every cell in my body immediately absorbs 3 times the amount of sugar that it would normally absorb, all within milliseconds. And why do you think at that moment in time, when that little kid darts out in front of me when I'm driving, why do you think my brain wants my body to absorb 3 times more sugar than it normally would absorb at that moment in time? Energy. Isn't that amazing? It wants me to have huge amounts of surge of energy so that I can focus. Boom. Right? And I can focus. But how long do you think I can stay in that state? How much can my body support that amount of sugar demand? Well, my blood system can't manage that much sugar for very long. I can only carry so much sugar in my blood system, right? Well, without grabbing that, box of cookies right there, right? Because that's what I'm going to want next, right? After that happens, right? I'm going to want the candy bar, or I'm going to want whatever, right? Because that focus becomes very short-lived and very stress-based. That's a different kind of focus. That's a stressed focus, okay? And a lot of times in our culture, that's how we learn to focus, is off of stress. Does that make sense? Yeah. And if I'm sitting at my desk, right, and the focus I'm using is that kind of focus, or it's worried focus, anticipatory focus. Like I have a daughter right now who's having problems with seizures, right? And she had to go to Northwestern this morning for a PET scan, right? And we're going to find out Thursday if she has to get surgery, right? Like I'm worried about that, right? And my brain, after I'm done with this and I'm driving from here to wherever, I'll probably be thinking about that. And what do you think my hypothalamus is going to do? It's going to be sending a signal to my pituitary gland. It's going to be sending a signal to my, adrenal gland. I'm going to be dropping out all this adrenaline, right? And I'm going to want to absorb more sugar than I normally would. And my body's going to demand more sugar. But am I going to be running from something? No, I'm just going to be sitting in my car demanding sugar, right? Right? Does that make sense? Right? And you know what I'm going to do because I'm not driving, because I'm not running? If I was running from a lion, different story, because I'd burn that sugar off. But because it's mental stress, mental focus, it's producing the same kind of energy need. It's just I'm not burning it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up storing all of that right around where my adrenal glands are. And do you know where my adrenal glands are? Right here. Okay? Number one cause.
That makes sense now.
Number one cause is because the demand, it's not because I'm just, not disciplined. It's the demand is not lining up with the physical thing that's going on. It's more of a mental demand versus a physiological demand. If I was a zebra out in the, in Africa running from a lion, I'd be burning it off every day. But instead, it's a different kind of demand. It's a different kind of focus. So what we want to teach is not that kind of focus, because that's the kind of focus that kills you. That's the kind of focus that leads to type 2 diabetes. That's the kind of focus that leads to obesity. That's the kind of focus that leads to cardiovascular disease. That's the kind of focus that leads to dementia. We want to learn the kind of focus that leads to, that is a calm, non-stress-based focus that isn't making this hypothalamus adrenal gland demand, but it's more of a medium energy producer that's more causing a fat burn instead of a sugar burn, okay? So that is, we'll learn more about this as we go, but it's a balanced nervous system energy producer that's a calm, focused, creative burn, not a stressed focus, okay? And that calm focus can stay doing that for hours on end. And that's where the innovation and the creative ideas come out of, not the stressed, obsessive focus. Does that make sense? There's two different types of focus. I've actually sat down with doctors before where I've talked to them about this, and I've had doctors argue with me that the only way you can focus is to be stressed. And I'm like, with surgeons, I've actually had surgeons, the only way I can focus is to be stressed. I'm like, no, your brain can focus and be calm. You can be calm and focused, okay? And so we want to teach you how to do that. So the third phase is we're going to hook up technology to you that is going to show you what your body's doing. And whenever you're doing the focus that's really stressed, the computer is going to give you feedback and say, no, we don't want you to do that. And it's going to say, now you're in the state of focus that's calm. So it's going to show you two different types of focus. And every time you do the focus that's calm, you're going to get points for that. Every time you do the focus that's stress, it's going to say, no, and we'll give you an electric shock. No, it's not going to do that. It's going to tell you, no, let's not do that. Let's do this. And we're going to get what we call battle points or arena points that prepare you for the real battle, not ones that just are going to eat you up over time. Okay? Make sense? So that's precision, power, focus. It's a program that the company's going to provide for you right here. It's available to you. Again, very high end, provided to some of the elite athletes and executives around the world, really, and it's right here in your office. We are not doing EEG, which if anybody knows some of the other work we've done, that just becomes very cumbersome and it's really not necessary. We're going to be doing the vision, the heart rate variability, breathing, and the focus piece. We can maybe do that down the road after you guys have gotten really good at this. If there are any really necessary clinical needs, like somebody really has a major clinical problem, bipolar anxiety disorders, that's something that we have to dig in a little bit deeper, we can do a consult over in Royer Neuroscience, which is more where we do a lot of clinical things, and that would be where we would work with you more individually, and that would be kind of outside of working with these stations. These are more for kind of trying to work at a base of just making you healthy, kind of more maintenance kind of stuff. And I would say start with this first and kind of see how that goes for you. But we'll work out an arrangement if you need some more one-on-one stuff, how to do that outside of here. I can answer any questions. Did that make sense? We were all over the map. We went from Leah's to Zebras to 98.6. Yes?
So I have glasses, but I don't wear them all the time. If I were to do the vision, like the training.
Yeah.
What should I wear my glasses?
Yeah, so what I would
Because
say,
if I don't wear them all the time.
yeah, I would say try it with and without. So if you're not getting stars without the glasses, go ahead and put your glasses on. So you'll wear your glasses, and then the 3D glasses you'll just put over top of them. And I would say for those of you that it's kind of hit or miss whether you wear your glasses all the time or not, you can kind of experiment. If you do a 10-minute session and it's like, wow, I'm not doing very well, maybe try it with your glasses or vice versa. And it's not a big deal if you don't get a star that time. It's just sometimes just try it that way.
So the precision area is about 8 weeks if we participate in 3 or 4 times a week. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
And how long is
The power is about 8 weeks.
Oh, and then, but
Yeah.
you do it in steps. You don't do precision during the power time. You do.
Yeah, we'd like you to kind of get through the stages. And some people, everybody, like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. So we might have somebody that gets hung up on, not hung up, but somebody that is really struggling in vision, and they might, or precision, it might take them 12 weeks, and then somebody else could take 7 weeks, and that's totally fine.
So it's individual
Performance.
Individual, whatever.
Yeah, like I have, like Ian has had some pro players that go right through vision in 6 weeks, and he's had some that take 12 weeks. And that's the beauty of the program, is it's not like, oh, we're done, see you later. It's whatever you need to get you through, and then somebody might get through power faster than others, and so the program's going to work with that.
The second question. So the first section you have glasses,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you do the power section.
The power section, you'll have this heart sensor, and this one will work off of your ear. So it picks up your pulse off of your ear, and then there'll be a breathing pacer that you use. There's 3 different ways we can measure heart. This is probably the least invasive. There's a chest strap, and then there's a finger sensor, and there's an ear clip. The ear clip for this setting is the best way to go. So we'll use that. And then for the focus, there'll be a breathing belt that goes over, your shirt. And then there'll be 2 sensors that go on your finger that measure what your skin conductance is doing, which is the electrical current on your skin.
But all of that is where somebody just does it themselves. They don't need anybody to help them put the whatever on.
No. So what we'll do is Adam, who lives in Rockford, who's our clinical director, he will come down here, and him and Jordan will get your room set up for you. They'll also have kind of a training day, and if everybody kind of starts that day, they'll just kind of show you how it works, or they'll just kind of pick a couple key people that can be kind of show the other ones. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory. Plus there'll be a number that you can call, like, hey, I need some help. Adam, we have staff that are always available, like, I need some help with this. Somebody will jump on a Zoom call with you and say, here, let me show you what to do. But once you get started, it's pretty self-explanatory, and you'll roll through. And then the way the vision works is as you pass through the star gates, you go through the gates, then it'll just move you forward. But you'll see after each session, okay, you need to do this one again because you didn't pass. So next time you come through, once you get 9 stars, and you go to the next gate and moving forward. So it's very nicely done that way. It's very self-generated. Okay. Any, yeah.
How often in your lifetime do you need to repeat this stuff?
Yeah, so a lot of that is what you're using it for. So in this setting, you guys probably just going through this one time for the vision is going to be totally enough for you. The heart rate stuff, like learning to do the breathing and heart rate, that would be something that having that available outside of here after you learn that skill is not a bad idea to just have as a resource for you. So this device, there's one, this is a little higher end one, but there's one you can get for your phone, an Android or an Apple, that's about, that we can get at a discount for you for about $90, that if you find that you really like using this, I would recommend just to use ongoing as a good tool to have. And so that's a great thing. Like, I mean, to give you an example, like all the EEG and heart rate and breathing stuff, really high-end stuff that I have, that I use in my clinics, which is, thousands of dollars. When each of my kids graduated from college, that's what they all wanted for their college gift. I said, for college, what would you like? And each one of them requested, I'd like my own EEG and heart rate. I mean, think of what do you want for, and because each of them, the 4 kids, it had benefited them so much for different reasons. One of them had OCD, one of them had different things, and throughout their education, it had been such a meaningful impact that they were like, we can't imagine going through life without having access to something. So that's what we invested in. And so not that you need to go to that scale, but I would say of all the 3 things, knowing how to have access to the heart rate and the breathing piece, which you can have available to you, I would say that I would be surprised if you didn't want that at the end to say, a year from now, I'm having problems sleeping. Oh, I can pull out my heart rate thing and I can work on that and really push that. So you'll have access to that if you want that at the end. I can get those for you. But that would be something you'd want to do throughout your life, The other stuff is kind of one and done. I think you'll be good on.
Vision, you think so too?
I think so.
Because my grandson, as I mentioned, is nystagmus. He went from not being able to being totally blind to not being able to function with no glasses, which is amazing.
That's amazing.
It's totally amazing. So I know this stuff, but I wondered if that would be helpful for him to have. To do, again, I know he went through that.
It's possible. It's possible. Now, like somebody like Kirk Cousins, who that's his career is based on vision. He's been through the vision program 4 times.
Okay. I
So
just
he-
know how much it helped him the first time.
And he would tell you, which I interviewed him last week, he said every time he goes through it, his completion percentage goes up. Now that's his career. I mean, he just signed a 1-year, $35 million contract 2 days ago. So he's probably glad that he invested his last year into vision, because he'll tell you it had a big piece to that. So it really does matter. If you're the accountant here or the bookkeeper, I'd say, I want you to make sure that you're doing vision every couple years, because that could be a big piece, So any other questions?
So going through this program, how does that get me to sleep at night?
Yes. So the breathing, the HRV piece, okay, a great site that I want you to go to is heartmath.com, So the program you're going to do for the breathing is the identical program that's at heartmath.com. And the breathing program, just that piece alone, has shown improvement of close to 40%, just that program, 40% in sleep problems over a 10-week period of time. So when you do the breathing program, you should start to see some improvement in being able to fall asleep and stay asleep.
That'll shut my brain down.
It'll start to shut your brain down, okay? And let me give you I'll give you these numbers. This is very fascinating because this was a study that was done, and I love this because we replicated some of this we replicated this with blood pressure, but this is a study done on 11,000 people. Okay, so not a small study, okay? Focused on 11 people. This was over 6 weeks. So you guys are going to have access to the breathing program unlimited. Okay, so these people only had the program for 6 weeks. Okay, they had decrease in depression of 56%, decrease in fatigue of 48%, decrease in anxiety 46%, increase in calmness 38%. I was incorrect on sleep. Sleep was improvement in sleep by 30% and improvement in focus by 24%. That's just on the sleep. That's just on the breathing. Now we're going to add in the biofeedback for the focus, which should add in probably another 15 to 20% on the sleep side of things, because that's going to calm you down even more. Okay? So that would be equivalent to basically what a sleep aid would do for you without having to do a chemical. Okay? So is it going to take away all your sleep problems? No, but it's going to be the beginning aspect of you learning to shut your brain down and control what your autonomic nervous system is doing. Most of the time when I do breathing with people, even ones that aren't coming in for sleep issues, the two most common things I hear when people do breathing, and they can be coming to me for other things, ADHD, dementia, whatever, the two most common things I hear when people do breathing by week 7 is they typically say, I am more aware of what's going on around me than I've ever been. Like I'm more present and aware, and I'm sleeping better than I've ever slept. And that's unsolicited. And we're usually dealing with something else, and they just, out of the blue, am I supposed to be sleeping better because I'm dreaming better and I'm sleeping better? Okay? So if you are coming in with a sleep issue, okay, when we get to the power portion, the breathing portion, I really want you to double down on the breathing. Like if I say we're doing 3 or 4 sessions of breathing a week, try to get in there every day and breathe and just become an expert on breathing, because it is like the best thing that you can be doing for that as a base. There's other things you might need to be doing, but it is your base. There's other things medication-wise that are duct tape that can help a little bit, but if you don't have that breathing base, they're only going to just be chemically based things, right? Okay?
Are all the sessions 10, 15 minutes? I mean,
Everything's 10.
Power and
Everything's 10.
minutes, okay.
I've been
How long does it take to kind of set up and get going once you're in there
glasses, type in your password,
and go?
glasses, go, you're out in 10. The vision sessions are 2 5-minute sessions. The breathing sessions are 3 3-minute sessions, so you're in and out. It could be 11 minutes,
Okay. Well, that extra minute.
Yeah, so. Okay, guys. Ian, did I miss anything? We got it. Okay. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're too. So when would you set up?
We can set up next week.
Okay.
Okay, so I get whoever.
Karen's our traffic cop.
Yeah. So let Karen know. We need to know, because I need to make sure we don't get too bogged down on the stations. So I need to know a pretty accurate number who's doing the program, so that I'll know volume-wise what's going to make it crowded on a station.
Sure.
So, because the last thing, if you have crowded issues on stations, then compliance goes down. Compliance goes down, we won't be successful. The only way it works is compliance. I don't have magic pixie dust. This is not take a pill and go. This is, you're going to have to work. Leverage your brain's capacity to learn. You teach it, it will learn. And the dividends will be long-term, not stop taking something and then you're back to where you started. Everything you invest in will pay over long term. Okay? Cool.
This doesn't involve wearing headphones, is it?
Headphones? Mm-mm. No. No.
So others that are here, we have more people in the office that didn't choose to attend today, but they can join if they want.
Just make sure we get on the list because.
They didn't come, they don't get the headphones.
Power.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was fun.